step. So what happens when you use salt with food, a lot of the same stuff, what you do with food is what it's going to do to our body. So tenderizing a tissue, shifting the, allowing water to plump up. You can draw water to the surface, and some of it depends on how much salt that you use. When we're doing neti, our goal is to try to make the water as salty as our tears. So you don't want it too salty because it'll actually burn. And you don't want it not salty enough because it can also burn that way as well. So you want to find that perfect salinity. And that's why when you salt it, and all of our bodies are going to be a little bit different, you want to taste it after you've made your salt water, to make sure that it's roughly about as salty as your tears. So the way that you're going to do your neti pot, I'll kind of walk you through it step by step, everything I've done until now. So I have washed my neti pot way in advance, and then I boiled water, because you want to make sure you use very clean water when you're doing neti. You want to make sure that you're you can use distilled water. To me, the easiest way to do it is just boil it and to let it cool, because I don't have distilled water that I buy at the store or anything like that. And so you boil the water. Right after you boil the water, so you want to, my neti pot is about 8 ounces, a little, unless I don't tend to fill it all the way, but it's about 8 ounces, it holds 8 ounces. And so I'll boil about 2 cups of water, because an 8 ounces is 1 cup of water. So I will boil like 2 cups of water, and then I'll use half of the water to pour it through the neti pot to sterilize it before I actually put my salt in. So I take a half a teaspoon of salt. I use kosher salt. You can also use sea salt. They have about the same level of sodium, and they're roughly about the same, but other salts are a little different. Like table salt is way saltier. Iodized salt, it's just way saltier. So I don't recommend. I recommend kosher or sea salt. You can also use like one of those Himalayan pink salts as well. And so you want to use about a half teaspoon to 8 ounces of water. So a half teaspoon for a cup of water, something like that. And start with that. And then, it's trial and error. You'll figure out exactly what your body needs as you do it. Repeat it different times. And so once you kind of pour half that water through it, then you pour the boiling water into your neti pot, and then you put the half teaspoon of the salt in there with it. And then you're going to let it cool. And I've actually done all this. When I pour my water in, I pour it in where I'm going to be doing neti. So like right now I'm in my bathroom. I poured the water and the salt in here in my bathroom because I didn't want to have to be carrying it after I was letting it cool for a while in the kitchen, and then carry it in here and spill it all over my floor, because I find that the shape of it really lends itself to spilling very easily. So I just bring my kettle into the bathroom and poured it in here. So I did all that a while ago. So let it sit for anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes to cool off. And again, it depends on the temperature of your house. It depends on what kind of neti pot you're using. It depends on what kind of countertop you have it on and how much that's absorbing the heat from, so you'll have to figure that out as well. So mine's been sitting at this point for, it's perfect temperature right now. It's actually been sitting for almost 50 minutes now. And you want it to be basically like a baby bottle. Like if you've ever fed a bottle to a baby, you have to touch it on the skin. It should feel comfortable. It shouldn't feel hot. It shouldn't feel very warm either. And you don't want it cold. So just that body temperature feeling. And you can, stick your finger in, make sure your hands are clean, stick your finger in, and then you can also put your finger in and taste it and see what the salinity is like. Does it taste like your tears? Mine tastes maybe slightly salty. So we'll see. Mine tastes like a little bit too salty. So we'll see if I start burning or if it's just perfect. And the way that you're going to practice this is that you're it's not great to do it in the kitchen. The reason it's not great to do it in the kitchen is because you really need to be able to bend over. Like when I bend my back down, I'm going to try to get it flat. And this has to do with the position I want my head in when I do my neti. Actually, the best place to do neti is outside. So if you can just go out in your backyard or whatever and do, blow your boogers all over the backyard, that's actually the best place to do neti. The second best is in a bathroom, because a bathroom counters tend to be lower than a kitchen counter, and you can bend down a little bit more comfortably. So I'll show you actually that in my bathroom, I have, I'm actually sitting on a little step stool right now, and I'm going to walk up the step stool so that I can show you the best position for the back. So I'm actually standing on a step stool right now, and I want my posture, like if I was doing a forward bend, just a total flat back, and I don't want my head looking up and I don't want my head looking down. I just want it totally neutral, so that when I go to turn my head is just perfectly in line with my spine. My eustachian tube, which connects to the ear, is not going to be lower than my sinuses, because my head won't be tipped back like this. My head is going to be neutral, and therefore that eustachian tube will be kind of in the same, in the proper position for that, because you don't want to get a bunch of water dripping in there. Okay, so this is basically about the position that you're going to be in. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your neti pot, and I'll start with the right nostril. Just place it in the nostril, and then you lift your wrist up and you turn your head, and it feels like when you go swimming and you get water up your nose and it starts to drip out. See, I feel a little bit of burning. Come back to the middle. I may have tilted my head to look at you guys. I hope I didn't do that. Don't do it if I, and then just blow out gently a couple times. Nothing hard. Sometimes the water doesn't come out of your nose and you have to, like, it doesn't drip out the other nostril. And if that happens, just even come back to the middle anyway and blow it out. Okay, so I only did one nostril. Now I'll do the other side. So I'm going to put it in my left nostril. And then tilt my head the same way. And then come back to the middle. So some people, when they pour their neti through, so I'm doing, when I come back, I'm gently blowing out. And you can either get a tissue or you can just like kind of wash in the sink like this. Okay. And just kind of blow out, and you'll drip like that. Now, some people, when they do this, they're basically not going to get anything that comes out. Like, it's going to get trapped up there. It's not going to come out the other nostril. And again, you have to just let it pool and then blow it out the one it went into. And then other people, it's literally just going to go through like a sieve. Other people, and it depends on the structure. It depends on if you have any inflammation going on in there. There's like a whole bunch of possibilities of what could be happening. So sometimes it can go right through, and sometimes it can feel like it's a little bit stuck. And if you're blocked and you have tons of boogers, different things are going to happen. And you'll notice after you sit there for a while, it continues draining. It continues draining. And that is why when you do this, you don't want to do it at night before you go to bed. You want to do it in the morning, or in the day. So you want to do it either like, between a meal. You don't want to do it near a meal because you're moving a lot of fluids around. And but morning is like really good time to do it because everything's going to drain out when you do that. And then, so like, I actually still have a ton of water left in my neti pot, and I could keep doing it side to side the way that I showed you, or I could just do a couple times. So it really depends on, like, I could probably do it a couple more times because I felt like a little bit blocked, to be honest. So I do feel like I need to flush it through a couple more times. And let's do that, because then we'll see how it changes. We'll see how does it start coming through easily? A little bit. Yeah. And it's crazy how much mucus starts to come. It's like your body goes, oh my God, what's happening? And your body starts throwing all kinds of mucus at it, right? Just from a little bit of salt, right? A little bit of salt touching. See, yeah, my right side is totally blocked. So we're going to keep pouring. It's going to pool up there. If you're blocked, one of the ways that you can open it up is by kind of changing the angle. So you can actually kind of take the neti pot. You couldn't see that I did this on the other side, but you could take the neti pot and kind of like lift the nostril up so that you actually manually shift the position of the nostril and of the sinus cavity. You can actually like move it in different positions and push the nostril up. And when I did that on the other side, it really opened up my right side more. So this is where you can kind of gently blow out. And this is where you can do, this is basically like nose yoga. And in fact, this is considered an Ayurvedic practice, but it's often taught in the yoga traditions. It's often taught because of pranayama. Because of pranayama, it's often taught in the yoga traditions to have a proper airflow for the breathing when you're doing your pranayama. And it's called jala neti. Jala neti jala means water. So jala neti, so it's like you're, flushing the water through. There's another yogic practice actually called sutra neti, which is actually like, a lot of the yogic practices are quite flagellating in nature, where people are really flagellating their bodies for this purpose of like spiritual growth. And one of the yogic practices is sutra neti, where you'll actually swallow, has nothing to do with water. You swallow a cloth in order to get mucus out of your stomach. Doesn't that sound horrible? And that's an example of, as a healthcare provider, some of the spiritual practices, when they are followed blindly, they're not necessarily, you can actually harm your body. And, they go through these spiritual traditions, but, for the purpose of enlightenment, or because the guru told you to do it or something like that, or, was in some text from 1400 BC or something. And that is an example, that sutra neti one that I'm talking about, where like, that might be okay. Actually, if I think about it from an Ayurvedic perspective, maybe that practice of, swallowing a cloth to sop up the extra mucus in your stomach, maybe that could be good for somebody with a kapha imbalance and had a lot of excess kapha and mucus in their stomach. That could be like an interesting thing, although I could think of some other ways to do that. But gosh, what would that do to a person who had high vata, or high pitta? So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because you may hear that word neti in other contexts, but this is really what we just did is called jala neti because it's water. Okay, jala is water. And so the other thing you can do when you're done with neti is you can gargle with salt water. You will probably feel some of it come through, some of the salt water come through the back of your throat, and you can, spit that out. You can gargle when you're done, either with regular warm water or salt water if you like. You can spit, you'll feel things drain, and just kind of the main thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing this is whatever you do it gently. Like don't really go when you're, blowing your boogers out from Neti, like don't like really force it out. And the more gentle you are with your body, the better with these things. And you start very gently, and you can see, okay, maybe I could go like a little bit more force. You want to get movement, but you certainly don't want to start with like, sometimes I hear people blow their nose and it sounds like an elephant trunk, and it can be quite rough. And the older you get, the rough way of being with the body tends to not work so well. So you want to start gentle and then build in force from there to get to the right amount. So you don't want to go too far. So you've done your neti, you've done both nostrils. Maybe you've done it once or twice, or maybe you've done it, couple more times than that. Like I still have half of my neti pot in here. I feel pretty good. I don't feel like I need to do it anymore. If I wanted to just finish the job, I could do it, but I really don't feel like I need to. I don't have a lot of sinus issues myself. My sinus pattern is pretty dry. So I tend to get maybe a little bit of inflammation and not really a lot of boogers. Whereas other people have a tendency to be more wet in their nostrils, and so you really want to see, like, so for somebody who has very high, like higher vata in their sinus cavity, I wouldn't recommend like doing this a ton, right? Because you're actually going to be like a little bit more sensitive. And so when it comes to doshas and how frequently the different doshas may want to do this, there may be some variables there. Certainly you want to do this differently in winter versus a hot season. And you can do neti when there is an allergy season, there's a lot of allergies, a lot of allergens in the environment. You can flush, use this as a way to flush them out. You can also do this if you are, you've had a lot of dust, you're cleaning your house, something like that. You can also do this if you've got a headache. And sometimes if you have a sinus headache, which sometimes it can be difficult to tell the difference between a sinus headache and a migraine, but this can also help migraines. But you can see how much stuff is shifting. All those fluids that are moving, they're coming from somewhere else, right? So it's not like you're just affecting the sinus cavity, you're also affecting other surrounding areas where things are shifting in and out of, right? Because it's not like everything's not totally walled off in your body. So fluids are moving throughout the entire head and the throat. You could probably feel things in your throat, and you could probably feel things in your ears. So you're really not just affecting the nose, you're affecting nerves in the head, you're affecting blood flow and lymphatic flow in the head, and the neck. And you can even, start to affect the way that the nerves feel inside the head. You have so many different cranial nerves that can be affected through this, just with salt water. So at the end of it, you want to feel like a little more awake, a little more alert, and probably draining a little bit. And that's normal. You do not want to feel like it was burning. You do not want to feel like your eyes just like keep crying afterwards. That might be a sign that you've used a little bit too much salt. And sometimes people are left with like a weird taste, like they'll feel like a weird taste that comes out of the nose, actually. I've heard that a lot. And so, if you're getting those things, that would be like, okay, let's figure out what's going on up there in that sinus cavity. And there's some other things with oiling and stuff like that that can be done